Hey, this is Shaun with the GoTennis podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And today is 10 minutes of tennis with world-renowned tennis coach, Australian in Puerto Rico, Justin Yeo. And we are going to talk about what I am calling the rise of the Gen Z era in tennis, looking at the finals of the French Open 2025. All of them were born after 2000. Justin, does this make them young or us old?
Oh, we're definitely old, mate. um, no, I mean that's good signs that they're maturing all well, and that I remember training Destiny Ava and who else did I train in the 2000s? Jamie Forless. There were great players coming through that I think are all maturing right now. So that's why we're probably going to see a big wave of them coming through at this age, more than you would see a teenager. Teenagers are going to be, which are the later past 2000, but 2000 we're going to see a lot, a big wave of those because they're all in that maturity bracket right now for tennis players.
I like the phrase maturity bracket. And I was doing some research trying to figure out, are we having more younger players than we used to? And then every time I see one of those packages that they put out on during the majors, and they've got the teenage Chrissy Everett and the young Bjorn Borg and the young Boris Becker and Michael Chang and all these guys, all these players that were young, and we see a lot of the teenagers coming up, and Rafa starting to win at 19. It isn't necessarily new with the young players, but for some reason it feels different. What's going on here where we've got Coco Gauff at 21, we've got Alcaraz 22, Sinner 23, and Sabalenka 27?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this in our previous podcasts. Is that a player needs to be way more mature in so many different avenues. I mean, the adult eye doesn't mature to the age 25, which we all know that. Some mature a bit earlier, some don't. But does that mean those names you just mentioned, they've probably got even better tennis ahead if they continue to grow perception wise out of the eyes and get faster and faster. Um, the other thing that we have to realize is they've also had their eyes pretty strained till now too, because of the sun and the air and everything. We put pressure on ourselves with no glasses. So, um, yeah, I think just what we're seeing the most of is that when we talk about the five areas: emotional, personal, emotional, physical, technical, tactical, mental. We look at all those areas. You've got to be pretty elite at all of those to be the complete package these days. And then the other element is that I've been saying this for quite some time, probably my almost 30, 40 years of development teaching tennis, is that you've got to be good at every area of the game. You've got to be able to use the different grips and learn how to get yourself out of trouble. And I mean, the proof in the pudding right now, you've got to have incredible defense skills, because that was what to me was the difference between Alcaraz and Sinner. Is Sinner's really got to work on his defense skills.
Yeah, and I think Sinner's defense is definitely better. And you and I have this conversation often. I think it's Sinner's ability to finish a point that is the big difference, where Alcaraz can come forward, and especially later in the match, his volleys got better. I don't think Sinner had that same issue. But when we look at the resilience of these players and the maturity, and I think that's one of the things you mentioned earlier just now about the defensive play. If you look at Goff and how good she was defensively, I think that women's match was terrible personally. I didn't enjoy watching it. I think it was bad tennis. I think they were both struggling to play well. They both complained about the wind. Like, I get it. Sometimes neither of us have a good day and somebody's got to win. And I get that, where it looks like both the men seem to have a good day on Sunday. But that resilience that's there and the maturity, is that maybe the difference of having a better team, having those around you, where back in the day it was just, hey, look how good this 17-year-old is. And there wasn't that whole group of people supporting you.
Um, wow, I mean, what a loaded question. I mean, at the end of the day, if we look back, we saw a lot of replays of Chris Evert and some of these players, Boris Becker, some of these guys that were playing. You're professionals. You're out there getting not just a lot of money, but you're playing for something big, and you need to handle yourself. And so, that's what I would say the difference between the Saturday and the Sunday was that you know, you got get your emotions intact and stop playing the game. I mean, you're also an example and representation of other young athletes watching on the TV, and it doesn't make it look good that if you're a 16-year-old out there and I called it in Australia spitting the dummy and you smash a racket or you carry on and you go, well, look what the ladies did in the final. Like, I mean, the wind has always been there, the sun is always there, and the pressure is always there. So, I mean, it does show how much was on the line and how much they felt and how much they let it out, I guess. But at the end of the day, you're professionals as far as I'm concerned. And you compared the two Saturday to Sunday, they talked about the win on Sunday. Um, and the only thing that I think we need to bring up in a podcast to make people understand a little bit more about, because I wish they had have commentated that on Sunday, is that every time there was a momentum change was a ball change with Sinner, and nobody talked about it. And if you look at every seventh and ninth game and the next 2, 3 games, there was a huge momentum change. Sinner was pounding the ball a little bit further. The winners started happening. Less drop shots started happening because Alcaraz couldn't get the feel and the grip on the ball. Um, Less variety was happening. Um, it was just totally different ball game. If Sinner had a serve well first serve, this would have been all over earlier if he had to just serve well. I mean, that was at the end of the day to me what he missed the most is the first serve.
I think you
Um,
both agreed that if it went five, it favored Alcaraz for a few different reasons. And I want to make a point. Alcaraz has a quote about Sinner. It's a privilege to share the court with you. And I think it shows some of that maturity,
Absolutely.
handle those situations and be able to understand that. And that's a lot for somebody young in their 20s. When we look at other sports and we look at how people are handling it or not having a good ability to handle it, to be able to watch that is really a great thing because they're seeing the example that Rafa and Roger brought, that
Mm.
were not out there smashing rackets, and they were setting a good example for our children. And when my wife looks up on the television and sees our 2.5-year-old notice that somebody's smashing a racket, we know that makes a difference. And we know Andy Roddick currently is out promoting the sport. And we were trying to do the same thing. Let's get more people to understand how great tennis is. And if they're not smashing rackets and complaining and having bad press conferences, I think that helps.
Yeah, I think if you bring up the 2000s and some maturity, uh, if there was something that's probably different now than what it was, is you never would have seen um, sort of, well, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, they were the era. But the era before that, Agassi, um, Andy Roddick, all of the players that we can think of before, I don't think they would have spent most of their speech humbly appreciating their opponent and their opponent's team and spend a lot of time talking about their opponents and versus themselves and how much they deserve the pat on the back and how much they're going to keep kicking ass. I mean, I think it's got a little soft in that way. But on the other hand, um, it's a new age. It's a different way of people speaking. Coaching on the court. If I don't talk positive to the kid and try to give him a little bit of a tap on the bum instead of a whack on the head, they just don't work the same. So we're seeing a different dialogue, different narrative, different everything, and I don't know. I think interesting times, when we're talking men and women, even in our normal worlds these days. I think in the next 10 years, we might see a bit of a mix. I like sometimes when I hear Ruin speak and he just says, I'm a killer and I just want to keep going and I'm going to be the best. And I'm like, that's competitively what you want as a player. you know. And I think probably the one thing I like the most about the Open, and I hate to say this, but the pain on Sinner's face afterwards, even in his speech, and then even in his interview afterwards, that pain is Darren Cahill going to eat that alive and just make him be the work that all the other things that he needs in his game. He's going to use that pain to grow his game. And so Sinner to me is so many years more of development coming ahead.
That's it. New title. Use your pain. I like
Yeah.
it. We are out of time. Thank you, sir. This has been 10 Minutes of Tennis with Justin Yeo. I appreciate your time. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Cheers, mate.